Welcome to this audio is visual, episode 8, the final episode of season 3. And today we're joined by Tsoku Maela. But before we get into the interview, I just want to honor this day, the 21st of November, a national shutdown against GBV. A short moment of silence just to honor those who have passed around those circumstances. Today is the final episode of season 3, and we are joined by Tsoku, as I mentioned earlier on. Tsoku is someone I met in Cape Town and has been a friend of Itave before it was a podcast. But really, that's a story for another day. So, my cousin, and you mean Tsoku. Tsoku does not really need an introduction, but his bio on Insta reads visual auto-ethnographer, and his website further elaborates. Tsoku Maela is a South African interdisciplinary auto-ethnographer working on photography, digital and motion picture mediums. His conceptual bodies of work navigate the human condition through the body, psyche, and environment, and are influenced by other artists such as Samuel Foso, Misha Gordon, David Lynch, and Frida Kahlo. Maela rose to prominence for his widely documented abstract pieces, self-portraiture series, which studied and reflected on a subject at different states with their mental illnesses, challenging stigmas surrounding issues of the mind. He has exhibited at 154 Contemporary Art Fair, Lagos Photo Festival, AKAA, also known as Africa, Pulse Art Fair, and Africa Photo Fair. The interdisciplinary nature of his practice has seen him present talks at health conventions at the University of Witwatersrand and the University of Global Health Equity in Rwanda, while also showing work with student bodies at Harvard Graduate School of Design. And I'm going to mess up this pronunciation. Ljubljana University Medical Center in Slovenia. Yeah. He has also contributed to the Lancet Psychiatry Journal. Tsoku, welcome to this audio as visual. We're doing this for the second time.
First time was so nice, we had to do it again.
Yeah, bro, you know. How are you feeling? Who is Tsoku right now? I mean, I've introduced you, but it's been a couple of years since we connected. Yeah, so where you at, man?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, before I respond to that, my apologies to anybody in Slovenia. That is a difficult name to pronounce. But yeah, thank you again for having me on the show again, Andy. I really appreciate you creating space for us to have this conversation. How am I feeling right now? A lot, you know. I feel grateful. I feel happy. I feel content. Sometimes with the state of the world, I feel sad. I'm in deep mourning. I'm in deep reflection. But when I look at the sort of like collective effort and communities that are mobilizing on the ground to raise awareness, to really help in any space where there's been injustice, I feel a lot of hope as well. You know, that not all is lost in the mire or in the fire. So generally, I feel a mix of emotions generally, but I always try to stay in the present, in the realm of possibilities. And as for who I am, that changes every day, to be honest with you. But I don't think I know how to quantify that from an individualistic sense. I think I'm always in search for that, but I think who I am as part of a community is I'm everyone. I'm your joy. I'm your sadness. I'm the sound from a hollow drum that lands in the ear of a dreamer. I'm just like, yeah, man. I'm nothing and everything at the same time. Always constantly evolving, always arriving and departing. You know, but always present, or at least trying to be present. So. Yeah, I guess I'm constantly learning.
I think what I really enjoy about you, Tsoku, like every time I connect with you, it's almost like I'm looking at myself in the mirror, because sometimes I fail to articulate some of the stuff that you articulate. So you have a poetic way of expressing. We see it in your work and your personality as well. And that's essentially what really draws me as a person and an artist. You describe yourself as a visual auto-ethnographer. For people who might not know what that means, how would you explain it, and how does it show up in your work today?
Right. Hey, these big words we're throwing around. Let's describe ourselves. So I think let's just break out the word ethnography first. It's a methodology usually that you find in sociology and anthropology, where people study human behavior through their cultural perspectives. So ethno means culture, and graphy is the study of culture. So you're studying people through their cultural lenses and perspective. And an auto-ethnographer is somebody who turns the lens back on themselves, starts documenting their personal experiences, and somehow those experiences find a way to connect with a greater community. So that's why the definition of being a visual auto-ethnographer has resonated with me over the years, because I find that like that's what I'm constantly doing, really, by turning the lens on myself, in trying to understand myself through culture, my history, my lineage, who I am, where I come from, and how all these concepts that I'm looking into in my work are kind of informed by that, you know. And so I've been fortunate enough to be able to share that work with people, and across culture, gender, and creed, like to have it resonate. So I think that is truly like an ethnographer's dream, to be able to connect, to tell stories that can connect with people besides, despite any sort of social divide that we might have.
Dope, man. You speak about connection, and it takes me back to your first body of work, I think, abstract pieces,
Yeah.
which became a big and recognizable body of work, and people often talk about it through the lens of your mental health. But for when you look back now, what was it really about for Wena, and what do you think people misunderstood or oversimplified about the work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I'm going to give you a bit of a background with abstract piece. I know we're going to get into it a bit more, but you ask the question like how, like what is it that people missed about it or overinterpreted? It's actually very interesting to me, because initially when I made the body of work, it was just me reflecting on my own state of being, very confusing time. Shout out to Andre 3000 recently saying great things begin in small rooms, because I shot that entire body of work literally in a tiny room, with a small window for lighting, a stack of books for tripods. I was just trying to figure some things. I had some questions, and I figured these pictures would help me sort of like reflect on things. I wasn't really sure what I was reflecting on. I just knew that like something was happening within me that I needed to document. It's almost like writing. I didn't have a pen, so I have a camera, so let's go. And I think for the first 2 years that body of work was made, I did not really know what was going on at the body of work. I didn't really understand the work. However, people would come to exhibitions where the work was being shown, and they would know, right? So I'd have people walking up to me when they found out I was the artist. I mean, I tell this old story of this Chinese guy grown up in South Africa, and we were showing the work at Young Blood Beautiful Life Gallery in Cape Town. The first time I actually really showed the work, and this guy walks in there, and our eyes meet across the room, and he goes like, "Are you?" I was like, "Ishi, it's me." They found us, you know. And he comes up to me, man, and he says, "You know, I'll never forget that night, because that was a terrifying but also like sobering moment, right?" And he said to me like, I was just taking a walk. It's first Thursday, so you know it gets packed first Thursday. So he said, I was just taking a walk. I just had a very miserable day. It's been a miserable week. Generally, it's been a miserable life, honestly. And I was making my way back home, and I was thinking of like ending it all. But something told me to take a stop and walking in and just look at some work. And I came across this image he was looking at, rediscover, not recreate. And he was like, this image in particular is giving me a bit more hope to rediscover myself, as opposed to try and form myself in the way that society wants me to think of myself. And that was the first person that spoke to me about the work from a mental health perspective.
Oh, damn, it's
You know,
crazy.
so I think over that year, I was learning that like I'm also dealing with my own mental health issues, and it became what it was because of the passing of WHP when I wanted to share it with the world. So if anything, people did not misinterpret it initially. They knew more than I did about the body of work, and so I learned a lot about it through them.
You know, when you're saying that, like, you're finding that the audience knows more about the artwork than you do, and they're sort of reflecting back and to some extent speaking to you about what the work is, and because it's ethnographic, they're speaking back to you about who you are, right? How do you then reconcile that process when people are telling you about self in ways that, so you haven't met this conversation yet, and someone is looking at your work and they're like, oh, this is actually what you are saying, this is actually what you are feeling. How do you sort of reconcile these various therapists that are speaking back to you about your work? Yeah.
That's a good question. I think I guess the generic answer that we hear about art and that type of question is art is subjective, right? It's what people always say, and they're not wrong. I think it is very subjective. A lot of things in life. The human experience is subjective in a lot of cases, right? But I think what really makes those kind of interactions very special is that they're not reflecting back to me what I am, right? They're reflecting back to me what they see of themselves in the work, right? And so they think that's what I'm saying about them, or even by myself. But like, I could never truly experience this moment or life, this rain, or this how this juice tastes the way you would. I could never fully understand. Like you can describe it to me, but I'll never taste it the same way you do. You know. So whenever people tell you about their work and what they feel and what they I feel like they're reflecting back a fragment of something, of the human feeling and condition. You know. So whether or not that's me or not is irrelevant. It's just that there's another facet of the human experience that like I can tap into from them. So that's the only way I consolidate it, is like I accept it as another dimension to the human experience. And so you go back home and think about it like, okay, cool. You feel anxiety this way. That's interesting, you know. And now you start seeing it in other people and other places, and you have a little bit more empathy for other people. So I think it's just a puzzle, opening yourself up to conversation like that. So yeah.
It takes me to when you texted me, I think earlier in the week, and I was like, damn, it's crazy because I was watching a film of yours, and I felt a certain way, you know, like it moved me. And the first thing you asked me, you engaged that emotion instead of like veering off and like, oh, thanks, whatever. But I think it's like it felt like an extension of your practice, that when people approach you, even with, oh damn, like this image moved in me in a certain way, you don't jump immediately away from that, but you engage it. Like, and I wonder like where does that come from? Because it sort of felt like you were the therapist in that moment for me.
Right,
you know?
right. I hear it. Yeah, that's. Thank you for reflecting that back to me. That's interesting. I don't know. I think I've always been curious about people. You know, like genuinely, I think I've always been curious about people. I remember like even in high school, man. Like I'd always know in the group. I'm like, yeah, whenever you're going through something, you're just hiding it, you know. And like instead of shaming that person, you create space for them. You know, to just unravel naturally and organically, and not from a place of ego, not on some I can fix you. It's just like making space for somebody else to be heard, right? I think that's very important for me, not because I'm a middle child, but but because I actually believe everybody deserves to have their story heard, you know, unless they're a bigot and a racist. I'm not trying to hear you. Disclaimer. But yeah, generally, I think that's it. Like, because I'm curious about my experiences and myself with my work. So when somebody reflects it back to me, I want to understand why or how they feel. I'm not here to tell you. I've already told you how I feel. You know, I'm not trying to tell you again. You know, I'm not gonna. When you tell me, oh, I've watched Why Don't You Go Outside Anymore, and you explain your emotions, I think I sit with it and go like, yo, that's interesting. Because I felt similar, I felt the same way, but I want to know what texture of that feeling was for you. And like I said, like I always want to engage in conversation. I'm not trying to like tell you about myself. I want to hear about you, man. Let's build on this work. Let's expand on it. And maybe if I'm fortunate enough to make something else in the future, maybe I'll come. My approach will be from a different perspective, something a little bit more clearer. Because like I said, I don't believe in the individual I believe in the collective I. So it's like we're always striving to understand the human condition. So if I can just borrow from you a little bit, then maybe I can interpret it with a bit more clarity in the future. Yeah.
Individual I, and what was the other one?
The collective I.
So I like that. So this podcast, ne, like essentially when I started out, like my thing was I want to draw as much information as possible from people who have the experience, and like it's photographers from different walks of life. So I'm interested to know about your process. Like I would assume there's a lot of research that goes into it, because when I look at your work, it's like entering into a world, like you're welcoming us into a world. So I'm wondering, what does the Tsoku process look like when an idea comes up?
Yeah. Process, eh? Very interesting topic, that one. Because it varies from project to project. It varies from day to day. Because for me, the creative process is not very different from the process of living. You know, I don't separate the two. My space really invites ancestral connections. I come from a very long lineage of healers, traditional healers, shaman, like whatever, like the people who are working in the space of healing. Like we really come from a long lineage of that. And so I use my space of dreams as archive. Sometimes it's very easy to distill those ideas. It's very clear what the dreams are telling you. And so you jump, you go grab that costume there, you get your paint there, you do your self-portraiture series like Barongwa, abstract pieces. Sometimes it's longer and arduous because you have to try and sit and feel and reflect on not what it means, but like where it sits within you. Like, because sometimes it's very difficult to understand why I'm seeing or feeling certain things, and I'm not the type to jump very quickly on things. I really like to really feel the texture of them. What is it about this thing that really moves me or resonates with me? What is it trying to tell me about me as well? The world that I'm living in. So it's really just a long process of like reflection, questioning. Sometimes there's a lot of confidence in it. Sometimes there's a lot of fear and self-doubt in it. But you move knowing that like your guides will never let you down, or like they will never lead you astray. So I think it varies from day to day. I'm not sure if I'm answering that well, but it really varies from day to day. A lot of the times my process has really come from a place of alchemizing light from darkness, because I feel like a lot of my life has been very dark. Not in a negative way. People think of darkness and they go like, oh, my demonian one. No, man, sometimes it's like, it's cool. Like, you can't have light without darkness, and I just feel like I've always sat really in the shade a little bit more, and I've had to learn to create light from that. But I've been in a season where I've been trying to create from joy. We'll talk about Chakua in a bit. Really like trying to create from a place of joy, and that process looks very different. My relationship with my camera looks different. My relationship with my space looks different. The questions I'm asking are very different. Sometimes it doesn't hit the same because you're not used to working in that process. But it's something I endeavor to explore continuously as the process carries me and teaches me about who I am. So, long answer that. Short answer, it looks very different from day to day.
And your practice is interdisciplinary, so how do you know that the process is leading you to a film, or it's leading you to stills or body of work that is represented in photography?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. That's actually a really good question, because this whole thing started off with me not being able to afford to make a film.
Damn, that's crazy.
So it's like, I was like, I can't afford to make movies. Can I challenge myself to tell a whole story in a single frame, right? But some stories need to be told on a certain medium, right? They have an energy, they have a flow about them. And so I think that's how I just feel it in the moment. I never really fully know, but whenever the idea comes to my mind, I'm like, nah, this is a film. It's a film. It's not gonna hit. The metaphors are not gonna hit well with in stills. It needs motion. It needs a kinetic energy. I need some camera movement in this. I need to hear somebody's voice in this moment. I need to hear sound. I need to hear music in this moment. The frames might be photographic, but I need something more in it. So even that is a question that like lingers until like the moment it happens. Sometimes it's like I'm just like grappling with the idea constantly, but sometimes you just know. It's in your gut. You feel it. Sometimes it's a poem. Sometimes it's a script that will never make it to film. Sometimes it's just a line of color on a page, bro. Sometimes it's a song. No one will ever hear it, but hey.
You're like the perfect guest for this podcast, because not only is it visuals and motion, but also music.
Yeah.
So your audio is really visual,
Real, yeah.
And I like that about you. So, but how do you come to art? How do you know that, okay, this is the way that I want to express? I mean, you could express with numbers, but here you are.
That's a tough one. I think intuition. Honestly, just intuition, man. Like, I would like to think that I'm guided. I don't think I'm special in any way, to be honest. But I like to think that I don't know anything or much. I just would like to think that I'm guided in the moment to just know where to go, and I trust. I trust that, like, sharp. I have a camera that's not really made to make films, but we need to make a film now. What are we gonna do? We're just gonna shoot. You know, are people gonna look at it and be like, "Oh, you shot on this camera. It's not really in 4K." What's the story? You know, what's the story? I could shoot on a phone. So honestly, it's just intuition and just like trusting the process to guide me, or my guys to guide me. Yeah, and I guess try to be present in that moment and just go with it. I wish I had a more sophisticated answer to this, but honestly, it's really just intuition.
Nduvile mna Tsoku, I've
Yeah.
heard you, dog. I've heard you. Before I continue, Siphokazi, you want to jump in? Still cool?
Yeah, so on the spiritual aspect of it, right? The assumption we make sometimes is that when we accept that we are led by Badimu, right, we assume that Badimu are, well, no, we assume that that's always the right journey, right? That's always the perfect journey. What are some of the moments where you are like, actually, this was not the right decision? And it's like a whole body of work, and well, we don't know that, but it's out there, and you're like, this was actually not the best decision I could have made emotionally, maybe even to reflect what spirit was saying at the time, or also it wasn't the right time, but it's out there and it happened, but you are the one that sort of knows that although I feel guided, I think that this was probably actually of the not so best guidance that I might have received.
Yeah, that's also another really good question, because like when it comes to belief, right, we're not perfect, you know. And I always joke like about like spiritual trauma sometimes, and say for me, the spiritual plane has been a tough one sometimes because I have questions. And I think sometimes for us as Black people coming from these traditional spaces, that you're raised to not question the space. You know, you kind of just have to go with it. So I'd say in my photographic space, in my artistic space, it's been very difficult to question, you know, because again, I've been taught of that hierarchy to say, who are you to question, right? So there's also that sense of fear, but a fear coming from a place of respect as well, right? Which is very different for me when it comes to, you know, Western Christianity and all the other systems of beliefs. There, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. Why am I doing this? You know, because that was not something in the household that was pushed hard in the household from a traditional perspective. But Badimu is like, you never cross the line. You know, you have to like walk the course. And I think it's been a space of tension for me as well. And so it's not been perfect. It's been just it's always been about like, do what you need to do and ask questions later. And so I always go back after the work is done to reflect on it. Like, how did I feel about that? Did I miss anything? Did I do it right? So I think it's just it's in a constant state of flux. But I always know that it's from a place of love as well. I would never. I don't believe that would put me in a position where they would cause me harm. I also don't think they're perfect, in that they were once humans. They once lived on Earth as well. And so they also, the one thing about, if I can just go a little bit deeper as well, and shout out to my big sister really for putting me on to this knowledge as well, is that like, I think we have this misconception about Badimu that like, they're always like perfect, you know, like sometimes even they get jealous, you know, when they see you in a space that like, maybe they wanted to be in as well at some point, or like they don't feel like it's right for you. You know, you're with the wrong person, you're following the wrong career path. Sometimes they also have that. It's up to you to go and speak to them about it, because if anything, they're always understanding. As in, like, you've spoken to us about this. We'll try and resolve the space in a way that feels amicable. Unfortunately for me, during that time, I wasn't really tapping into the like, yeah, I'm not really sure I wanna do a nude photo of myself and put it out there. It was just like fear based, but like eventually I really started going back and be like, beautiful work, you know, but can we just, this is not coming from a place of disrespect. It's just that like, I mean, I'm not ready for this chat. You know, I'm not ready to be the face of, you know, is there another way maybe we can do this, you know? And they've always been gracious enough to come back to me with alternatives. And I guess maybe that's where the conversation of mediums comes in, where you switch the medium and you try something different. So yeah, I think it's an ever evolving conversation and relationship. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out myself, you know?
Cool, man. When I think of Cape Town and you, I think of two things. Number one, when I was in a taxi going back home on the highway, I saw a print of yours on the side of a house. I was like,
Yeah.
I know that, but I just couldn't connect how it got there. And then later, you were in studio at Amplify, and I was trying to understand like the gallery space as an intern, and you were there as a was it a residency?
It was a residency.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, could you maybe touch on like being within the space where you are in relationships with galleries, residencies, like that type of space? How has that been for you? And can you just like touch on that a bit? Yeah.
In what way? Like touch on.
In all, yeah, in all its layers. You don't need to focus on Amplify. Just generally,
Okay.
how has it been for you dealing with that like environment?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think galleries are a very interesting, and I think a very important part of, I guess, the artistic journey, right? I remember a conversation, actually in the same house where you saw that big mural. That was Gustav Hoffman's house. I used to live there. That's why I shot abstract pieces. And that's why I shot broken things. So he was very supportive of my career as jumping, like started from the jump. I was paying rent with my work sometimes. And he was just so supportive from the beginning. And so he put a big mural of that work on that highway. So much love to him. I was having a conversation with somebody when I started out, and things were going relatively well from the beginning, and like my name was starting to get out there. And this person, I remember one morning, somebody came to the house to buy a print, and there was some American collector or something. And that time we didn't know how to price the work. You know, we're just happy somebody wants it. And they're like, how much is this? We're like, 4,000. 4,000. They're like, oh, so what, $12? I was like, well, that's crazy, yeah? Jokes, 4,200. And so they came to buy this work, man. And I remember coming into the room, I'm happy, man. I'm doing the money spread with 4,000. Look at me, mama, I made it. And this friend of mine looks at me and says, what do you want to become? Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to, is this the lane you're trying to go? You want to sell work? You want to be in the gallery space? Or are you trying to go the way you've always wanted to go, which is like really have impact in society and the conversations that are happening within yourself and, you know, around you? And I remember thinking about that and going, I don't know. I know I want to be in the community space. That's where I want to be. I want to have conversations on the ground with people. I want to have art be accessible to anyone and everyone, especially Black people, you know? But I had an idea that day, and I was like, how do I fund that? How do I fund that movement, you know? Because I love working as an artist. I love having a 9-to-5 as an artist. But at the same time, how do I fund the movement? How am I going to continue making this work? And I was like, I think my work aesthetically creates a demand in the space, like in a commercial sense. You know, if we're to do a music thing, I'm able to do the underground and the commercial thing. God bless, we appreciate. So I was like, okay, cool. Is it possible to, without being like disrespectful or facetious about it, am I able to leverage the gallery aspect of it, learning the business aspect of being an artist, and funnel whatever it is that I'm able to make from that space, while also raising awareness of the work, and put it back into the community space that I'm trying to work in. Just doing homework and studying, you know, looking at what galleries are showcasing, who they're working with, what is the conversation that's happening in these spaces. And I started earmarking a few galleries, and I reached out to a few, and they responded, and I really started finding myself in that ecosystem, and started growing. And fortunately was able to build a bit of, you know, capital in that sense, and put it back into producing the work. And I think residencies came as a byproduct of that, because you're able to advertise your work in the commercial sense. So it helps a lot to boost your profile as well. So I was able to kind of leverage that to get residencies, which are great because you get a space to reflect on your work and create something new, and play with other artists as well in that space. So I'm not really sure if I'm giving you the right information, but it's like, I think for me the question was, how do I brand myself as an artist and grow as an artist, but also staying grounded in the underground, never losing my direction in terms of like the messaging. I don't want to ever produce work just for the gallery space. If they want it, they have to come get it here, and then we move that direction and never the other way around. So it's been a wonderful learning curve for me, dude. Like I've learned so much about copyright. I've learned a lot about business, a lot about how to brand yourself, how to talk to collectors. So if anything, it's been an incredible learning process for me in that sense. Yeah.
You mentioned something about pricing, and like that's usually a conversation that comes up a lot in the like visual art space. Like
Yeah.
you're making this important work, but also like you have to price it. Like how does that work out for you? How when you price, what are the things that you consider?
Yeah.
You know, what do you take into consideration? What are you thinking about? What does that look like for Wena?
Yeah. So pricing is always a very interesting idea, especially in the art world, because there are a lot of factors tied into how an artwork is priced. Firstly, you have to think about the labor that goes into it, how many people you worked on that, any overheads you might have had. Like, did you have to hire a camera? Did you have to hire studio space? Also the printing process and the archiving of the work to be produced as a product. Like how much does it cost you to print? Framing can be super expensive because printing and framing can be super expensive because one, you're printing on archival papers, which are museum quality papers, and so they age like they age over 100 years, so like they'll always be there, unless you live to 150 and somehow you're like, my artwork is now ruined, give me a refund. You'll be good, right? It's high-end archival papers, and so you're also framing these works. And I'm talking specifically in photography right now because that's the lane I'm in. You're framing these in certain types of wood that helps the paper to also age gracefully, and also the wood is good. It also doesn't age in a way that's kind of like gonna fall apart. So that in itself is high expenditure. And now you have to consider the size of the artwork as well. The price goes up. I mean, the value of the production of the work goes higher. And so these are some of the key factors that people kind of throw in when they think about pricing. But also, like, there's the big one when it comes to art is that, like, who is the artist, right? Or who's the person behind this thing? And so a lot of collectors buy the who. And this is not in any way disrespect to collectors or anyone. I understand it's part of the culture of the art scene is that people, I mean, it's the same thing as you going to a store and going like, right, which brand am I gonna buy today, right? So it's like you trust that this brand is gonna deliver the best. And in the sense of like the art world is like they trust that this brand will appreciate over time. And so we wanna collect this person. So yeah, so it's like there are a lot of factors that go into it. Yeah, and those are just some of them.
And for someone who's about to like enter the industry, maybe talking to a gallery right now, like what are the things that you would advise for them to be cognizant of, or anything really?
Story time. This audio is visual. Let's paint you a visual, and then I'll get into why I'm telling you the story. So around 2017 or 18, I was looking for a new space to work with. I was working with a space in Cape Town, and I feel like we were working on a really good project-to-project basis, but I started having higher ambitions for my work. I really wanted to showcase. I mean, individually, I was doing well. I was able to showcase in some beautiful fairs and beautiful exhibitions solo, but I started having big dreams. Vuyo, I have big dreams now. I wanna go far. I wanna be all over in Europe. I wanna be in America. I wanna be in Africa. I wanna be everywhere. And I wanna be like with the big boys because I believe in myself. I believe in the work. And so I'm looking for a space that also speaks that language. I want somebody that matches my values, that matches my ambition as well, So I started scouting. I started going to art fairs, doing some research, seeing what people are showcasing. Who are the people that I could speak to? And eventually, I got down to a short list of 2 galleries. I won't mention any names, just out of respect, because some information I might share, might be important to them. But one space was in Cape Town, one space was in Joburg, and so I sent an email to both of them, but with different portfolios because I understood the type of work that they kind of like to showcase instead of art that they showcase. So that's another important thing. Know the kind of work that they represent. So I sent them portfolios. Both of them hit me back up. The DMs were popping. They were like, do you want to sit down for a chat? We'll fly out to Cape Town. When are you in Joburg? Come chat with us in Joburg. Cool. I go to this gallery in Joburg, and it's me and the owner, another curator sitting in there, and we're having this conversation, and we're talking about the work, like we get to the crux of it. I read your bio, your portfolio is very impressive. You're doing amazing things. I mean, we can do amazing things together. We can go far. And then she leans in and she asks me a question and she says, but are you productive? Right? And I remember thinking to myself, am I productive? Nah. Nah, I'm not. You know? I am like in the sense of what they were asking me, in a very capitalistic sense, are you productive? I'm like, I like to take my time. I produce, but it's like,
So can I interject? Do you
sure.
think they were asking, can you produce work all the time?
Yes.
Okay,
Can
cool,
you
got
on demand? If we have an art fair and we're looking, you know, the market is asking for more, can we count on you to give us something? And I remember sitting there and I said to her, honestly, I was like, you know, I do about a body of work a year, sometimes two. But I go into reflective episodes, like I just be chilling. I want to think about things for a while, you know, is there gonna be a problem with you guys? And so they start to chit-chat and they're like, yeah, you know, not so much, as long as you can give us something. I was like, cool. A couple of days later, I fly out to Kapstad to meet the other gallery. And now it's like a big thing. We've got a whole lunch thing set up. I feel like a VIP. I'm like, wow.
It's like record label
Hey, dude.
meetings.
I was like, we're going far here. Yo, I'm about to block some people.
About to blue tick.
You know, there'll be signs.
Yeah.
I'm gonna block people. And we're having this conversation. A lot of it wasn't even about the art. We're talking about life. They're trying to get to know me personally, what kind of family I come from. You know, what moves me, what really inspires me, where do I see myself, you know? And then we get to talking about the art. And I remember the guy gave me advice. He's like, I remember he said, you don't want to be too prolific, meaning you don't want to be too productive. You want to produce your work because getting like, when you rise, it's easy to rise fast. But like coming down is also fast. He's like, you want to rise and then you want to plateau. I liked that because that's the reflection time for me. You want to rise and you want to plateau. And let us do the work in that plateau, right? And then you can rise again, and then you plateau. Two different galleries, two different mentalities, two different ideas. One was all about like, can we just make money right now? The other one was like, how do we build with you until, you know, into the future? So I guess the more, to answer your question, some key points from their story is, one, understand the gallery that you're working with, like what kind of work do they represent? And do they share your values in the sense of that work, right? And two, are they invested in like growing your career as an artist together? Are they willing to invest in that career with you? Because one gallery went 50-50 with me on everything. The other one was just going like, just bring us the stuff. You know, we'll move it for you. I was like, okay.
Sounds like a drug deal.
Yeah, I was like, nah, I don't know about that. So it's like, are you guys aligned on value? Are you guys aligned on ambition? And also four, I don't know where I'm at with the list, but it's like, are they willing to be transparent on the business aspect of things?
Importantly.
This other gallery was sending me spreadsheets. Every time we made sales, I could see where the discounts were. I could see where it went. There wasn't like a void where it's just like, yeah, we sold two. And we sold it for so much. Everything was on paper. I could track the edition numbers. And so they trusted me as well to be honest in that I'm not selling my work somewhere else, because they also asked for exclusivity on the continent as well. So if I'm going to give you that, what am I getting in return? So that felt more like a relationship in building. So it's important that you ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions in anything you do as a young artist, like, because this is your life's work, you know, and they might represent it in a way that does not align with you. And I've met many successful young artists who chose to go the individual way. You don't always have to go with galleries. Sometimes you can go with small collectives that really care about photography or the medium that you're working on, and build very slowly. They don't own your catalog, you haven't signed contracts, but you guys work on a project-to-project basis because you're growing and you're learning from that. So, you know, do your research. What are they showing? Do they align with you in their values? Are they transparent on the business aspect of things? And are they gonna go 50-50 or like invest as much as you in your career as an artist, you know? Yeah, those are the four main things I would say really keep an eye out for, and just ask questions, man. Don't be afraid, you know?
Can I add one more on that fifth one? I think it should be the first one. One needs to know themselves and their own voice, you know, in order to have those conversations and be able to ask those questions.
100%.
So how important is, you know, when you talk about residencies, how important is like the skill of writing? Because oftentimes, you know, with residencies and fellowships, you need to be able to write the application. And yes, of course, they're looking for the product to come out at the end as a body of work, as in art form, but text is also equally important. So what sort of is the value of knowing how to put on paper who you are, your identity and your work, and sell it so that you're able to access those types of spaces? Yeah.
Super important. Super important. I think it's very important for you as an artist to be able to articulate to some degree of proficiency like what you do. I mean, I'm going to be honest and say that the residencies that I've done so far, I've been very fortunate to be invited to them, right? And whether or not that's a byproduct of my work existing the way it is, because I write a lot for my work as well, that could have helped. But generally, when you're applying for residencies, it's just like text on text on text. So I think it's important to, if you struggle with writing and articulating your work, write whatever draft you have, but send it to somebody, your friend, who's good at writing, or a curator that you might know around the way, and just ask for some pointers, really, or Google other people's applications and see how people are writing, the format, get your bio right. It doesn't have to be like PhD standard English, guys. It's like, can you show me, can you distill what you're doing to me so I understand why I need to put money and space and time for you to come here and do this thing in our thing. So just ask, really ask the people around you, or reach out to some of your favorite artists. Sometimes you never know, you shoot them a DM, you shoot them an email. I've done that a lot of times, really. People that I thought, hey, they're inaccessible. I was just like, yo, bro, I'm a big fan of what you do. I know we've never met before, but I'm really trying to get into this residency because I feel like it could elevate what I'm trying to do in my space. Would you be keen to look into what I've written so far and give me some pointers? I've done this with applications for master's degrees where I've reached out to people like, can you read my statement? Is it making sense? And you'd be surprised how many people are willing to just reach back out and be like, cool, this is what you need to look out for. Data this way. So yeah, I never really feel isolated. Ask for help if it's difficult, but yeah, I can't stress how important it is to be able to articulate in text.
So when we were preparing for this conversation, you mentioned that being linked to mental health conversations came with real consequences for you and your family. Can you maybe just take me through that period and what it was actually like behind the scenes? We were seeing the highlights, but there was probably more that was happening that we didn't know of.
Yeah, I think somehow interestingly linking back to the first question you asked about interpretation of work. So, all right, so abstract pieces. Where do we begin? I think there's an interesting perception in the art world when it comes to artists and what they're talking about, and sometimes we tend to disconnect the human from the work, in that they might be talking about something that's actually real for them. And I think also living during the era of Black excellence, where people are just happy to see a Black person thriving, sometimes we forget that not everything should be celebrated. In the way we need to be asking questions as to what are the real world effects of what this person is talking about. And I feel like very grateful for abstract pieces. It's done some enormous and amazing things. And I've over the years, been able to detach myself as the person from it and allow it to take root in all the communities that are doing work, whether it's in academia, whether it's in the space of mental health. We spoke about the Lancet earlier. But you need to understand that this is a body of work made by a Black man living in Africa, and he's talking about mental health stigmas within the Black community. And I think the work had the reach that it did because of the resonance, right? But I'm coming outside, and people are like, yo, dog, you're everywhere, bro. Yo, dog, congratulations, bro. Yo, you're doing it big time. You're doing big things. And I'm thinking to myself, I hear you. I hear it. But my mom is in the same communities that I grew up in. She goes to church on Sundays. I'm everywhere, yes, but everybody reads, I still have to go to work as well, and so my perception, people's perception of me at work changes as well. You're no longer like the normal hardworking guy at work. You're like, oh, you're the guy with depression. you know. So suddenly you're in HR every couple of days because now you may have made a mistake. It's like, oh, are you?
Damn.
Is it depression? I was like, wait a minute, wait.
Sure, dude, that's crazy.
Like at some point, I even had to resign from a job because it was really starting to pile up in that sense where people were just scrutinizing you through their lens. You know, sometimes you show up to an interview, they're like, I know who you are. You know, so it really forms this perception about you in the public eye. When are you just trying to get a conversation going, right? But on the other side, people are congratulating you for popping off. It's like, hey, you must be doing big things. It's like, I'm not too sure about that. You know, we are trying to do things with the body of work. The reason we put it out there was because of that. So people don't really reach out to check in on you on some, yo, I see what the people are saying about the work and I see what you're trying to say. Are you in a good place today, tomorrow, whatever? It's always on some, either like they're calling you to tell you about their problems. You know, I've had people calling me on the dance floor in their clubs, yo, my guy's having a panic attack. What should I do?
That's crazy, dude.
I'm like, I don't know, brother. Go home. It's like you shouldn't be, you know. It's like people see you as this guy as like that has the answers as well. So it's like it can be incredibly isolating to be in that space where like suddenly you're the mental health guy in everything you do. And on top of that, I think also it's important to note that like before we officially put out abstract pieces the way we did, I'm not saying I was like popping off heavy, but like we had something going. You know, I had exhibitions already. We had some publications written. Barunga was out there in a few solo exhibitions. Broken Things was out there having its own conversation, right? But abstract pieces comes out, and suddenly it's like everything you do and everything you've ever done is about mental health and mental illnesses. So people look at Barunga as like, yeah, that brother is going through it again, you know. Or
Damn.
Broken Things like, yeah, he's definitely talking about depression again. I was like, no, depression can be a part of the human condition, but the human condition is so layered. There's so many other things I'm talking about, like spirituality. I'm talking about masculinity. You know, the self in a post-colonial world for a black person. What does that look like? You know, so you get lumped up into like everything you're doing is about mental health, and I just had to learn to swallow that pill. But I figured out that like the only way I can really have control over this narrative is to stop trying to control it as much by putting out new stuff that goes like, look, no, we're doing something different. It's like, I just need to pull back a little bit and continue doing what I'm doing. And so I think over the years, I've had to literally, pull back a little bit from being out there, showcasing work in certain contexts. I've had to be very selective about the things I do because it was weird, man. It was kind of weird. But at the same time, you're like, it's not the worst thing in life because people are still connecting to your work in a way that they feel resonates with them. But from an ego perspective, it felt like, I'm doing so much more. Why are y'all just lumping me into like mental health? And like I've also got family and friends who have to contend with that conversation around them in a very uncomfortable way. So I also felt guilty as well to say that like, even though I didn't put it out just for myself, I felt the conversation was important at the time, but I didn't really consider the effects it might have because I didn't think it would go that far, to be honest with you, you know. So yeah, I guess we live and learn from that experience.
It makes me think about like there was a point in time when I would write lyrics, but then I'd be like, what I'm saying here might impact my mom or my brother, you know. So like our experiences as people are not only our experiences, but somewhere somehow they are attached to those that are within close proximity of us.
Correct.
You make mention like in our private conversations about like a link between African spirituality and mental health. Do you maybe want to share or elaborate what you meant by that?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. You know, I think maybe a little bit of context, right? Whenever we think about mental health and mental illnesses, I think generally anywhere in the world, we're looking at it from a Western lens, right? It's psychiatry, it's a Western thing. And when you think about South Africa in particular, when you think about the history of psychiatry, it literally arrived here around the same time as Jan van Riebeeck. You know, they pulled up with their people started losing their minds. They're like, we need psychiatrists to come over. So that's when you really started seeing the small institutions building up and whatnot. What were Africans doing before then, right? What was the language to interact with issues of the mind? right? What did that look like? Unfortunately, we don't have that on record because documentation, and also with documentation, and also not understanding the efficacy of the practices. So there's a huge gulf between the issues of mental health and the language in indigenous cultures that we have here. So with that context as a background, it's like if you've met anybody or a lot of people who are going through a process, yaotwasa, right? People that are having a spiritual awakening, they often exhibit symptoms that look similar to somebody who might be experiencing like some sort of psychosis, right? You're hearing voices, you're seeing visions, If you're speaking to somebody in a Western context, it might be like, oh, you have schizophrenia because you're hearing voices and you're seeing visions. But then you come back home, Abu Gogo might say this child needs to be spoken to and be led through an initiation process. And I can speak to this as somebody who has that type of person in the family, right? It's like when they go through that initiation process, suddenly when they reach their spiritual awakening, you kind of see that kind of like those symptoms subside a little bit, right? Now that they are aligned in their journey and their path. But oftentimes what we see is that people get institutionalized. They're put on medication, and I'm not saying medication is wrong, and I'm not here saying psychiatry is wrong, but I'm just saying in that like there's so much that we don't understand from an African perspective when it comes to issues of the mind, and I think that's the reason abstract pieces has been so powerful in that like it is a visual language, so it kind of fills a void where there is no spoken language for these issues. And I was really, I had a really great privilege during the presentation we did at WITS. I don't remember her name, but there was a lady who was doing her PhD in psychology there, but she was also on the journey of Twasa, like to become a traditional healer. So her whole dissertation was about this very thing that I'm speaking about. It's like, where is room for conversations around like spirituality in the context of mental health and mental illness and spiritual awakening, because we are speaking in a Western way, but I'm African. How do we make space for that? If somebody comes into my room as a psychologist, as a Black psychologist, how do I recognize those things and say when you need to be, doing certain things? So I think that's the context we need to start thinking about it as Africans as well, as opposed to like just labeling ourselves as like, we're mentally ill. It might just be something else, So we should be a little bit more open to that.
I feel you.
Are you looking at me because I'm a practitioner?
Well, it could be, but do you have something to add?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. Just is that okay? Yeah, just on what you're saying, because I think we all like agree at this point in time in our lives that we know like Africans don't listen in one way, we don't see in one way. Matsilo Motsei has this book titled what's it called? It's Hearing Visions and Seeing Sounds or something like that, right? But it's like, the Western framework creates anatomy and says you listen with your ears and you see with your eyes, but we know it's not broken apart like that. And so I definitely share some similar sentiments in terms of how when we think about mental illness, or when we put people on the category of mental illness, especially Black people, because I've only been Black. So when we put Black people like on the category of mental illness, and we're like, of course you're supposed to be hearing things because your body, because you exist with your entire body in its entirety. And so you should be hearing things, and you should be seeing things, and you should be touched by things. And you should be communicating with these other things that are not human, So, but of course, and I think this is the gap in research. We do not. Perhaps the gap in research is that we don't actually know very well how mental health looks like for us, because our body does all of these other things, and Western psychiatry is going to read it as a mental health issue, and we know it's not. But there is mental health that exists within Blackness as well, that I think might be the gap that we need to identify and spot on and say, this is actually what it is, and this is how you know that it is not. It's a bit blurry because the mind also works with other senses. And I think that's where the blurriness is in the research that I know of people that work around African spirituality. they also know that it's quite fluid. And it's a challenge to do it. But of course, the fundamental issue with African psychology is that you're treating an African problem with a Western solution. And oftentimes, our solutions are not solutions that we would publicize and globalize, because they also have to do with questions around your lineage. And so it's very specific to you. You know, not all medicine is going to work for everyone because you are African. Sometimes your lineage is actually allergic to umhlonyane. You know, it's not something that we can just copy and paste. And so that's sort of the gap that I think exists in sort of answering and determining what that is. And maybe in a real way, Africans, to exist is to exist in that in between of being mad and sane.
Yeah, I hear
To
it.
some extent.
I hear it. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. There's a lot you said that I want to bounce on. I'm not sure how much time we have,
Yeah,
but
do your thing.
that void in academia as well, right? I can't speak on this with much authority, and I'm sure somebody's gonna watch this and correct me, and I'm happy to be corrected. But it's like, is there really room for Black people to be studying these very specific questions around ethnomedicines versus biomedicines when it comes to issues of finding solutions? You know, is there room where like our cultural beliefs are not like sort of like exoticized as like, oh, it's such a fringe, you know, we can't really like quantify the efficacy. Is there really room for conversations in that? Because I feel like once the archive starts to build up with more people writing on it and questioning it, we might actually start seeing that little nice confluence of it coming into academia and becoming in mainstream texts everywhere, right? And that might actually bring into focus like the depth really of mental health and mental illnesses and what the potential could be, right? The idea of mental as well is very, like the definition of mental varies from like geographical and cultural perspectives. Like in the East, it might be more of a spiritual thing when you talk about the mind. Yeah, so it's a very important question. It's a very important conversation and question. I too am still learning, and I've been wrong many a times along the way. But I do think we need to expand that conversation a bit wider, you know. And I think in whatever way that we're able to add value to the language of how to express, because like we have this thing called idioms of distress in medical anthropology, like where like you might feel something, but how do you express that feeling? How do I let a doctor know that like I'm feeling a cold, you know, because I can tell you, but it's like okay, you're feeling a cold. What exactly? You know, if I'm Zulu and I don't know like, what a cold is in my language, or like I know it is, but I can't tell you in English, but you only speak English, then there might be that gap between you actually understanding what's wrong with me and then prescribing the right medication. So imagine being a Black person who's never been to therapy before and walking into a room. And I mean, I can speak from my experience personally. The very first time I went to a therapist, when I was still like UCT days, like a lot was going on with me during that time. And my sister, God bless her, she took me to this lady and was like, she'll help you. It's a white woman. I've never been into a therapist, like a therapy room before. And she's asking me all these questions, right? And then at the end of the session, she's like, yeah, bipolar, right? I'm like, no injection, nothing. You just know from asking me these
Drawn from
questions.
responses.
And from there on, you put on medication. Now the medication is not agreeing with your body. You know, was the prescription correct? No, we found out 10 years later that it wasn't correct. You know what I mean? Because now we understand more. We know what to ask, what questions to ask. So it's that gap in that, like, I'm trying to tell you what's wrong with me, but English is not my first language. You know, you're hearing something else. So very important that we also like develop a language around this. Like, how do we speak about issues of mental health and mental illnesses in a way that's accessible to us as Black people? And that also fits into the framework of how we develop medications and solutions around that. Because yeah, so many of us are lost somewhere in translation there.
I feel you.
Yeah, so I think that's where the art makes more sense. That like whatever form of language we can create, whether it's visual, whether it's poetic, whatever can help us understand. Because my mother, for example, grew up during a different time. Me telling her I was depressed didn't connect, but her seeing the artworks, she was like, yeah, no, something is going on here. You know, so there are many different ways to communicate, and I feel like we shouldn't limit ourselves in building understanding and hopefully reducing the stigma around issues of mental health. Yeah.
Thank you for making the work. I mean, it opens up like room for conversations like these as well, you know. Wandi, I'm about to ask the last two questions. You want to jump in with something? Have any thoughts? Still cool? Sharp. So you mentioned to me you are in a very reflective season now. So what has that reflection opened you up to? And what has it informed you about yourself, your life, and how you relate to making work right now?
Yeah, I think a lot has happened in the world. Shout out to the pandemic. um, yeah, I think a lot of us have been in a state of mourning. Like I've been mourning a lot. People that we've lost during the pandemic, after the pandemic, culture, the self, changes in the world. I think sometimes as artists, we want to be the first to say something because it's happening right now and it's part of the zeitgeist. So you want to make something and hop on and be like, right, that's what I think about it. And I guess there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your spirit, go off and do that, right? But for me, I think this period, especially the last 5 years, has been very different to other times. And maybe that's because I'm getting older. But it's felt like a lot has changed very quickly, and I don't understand it. You know, I actually don't feel like I have a good grasp on it. You know, and I feel like I've also changed as a person. I often ask myself, who am I in this space? I also don't feel like I just want to say things, you know, because oftentimes you can be wrong. And this is something I learned by reflecting on my archive as well. I'm just like, yo, I thought I knew what I was saying back then. I used to think I knew what this body of work was about. And I feel like it's such a delicate time where a lot of things are in flux and a lot of things are changing. So yeah, I've just been in a deep reflective state where like I've been not forcing anything. You know, I've always worked with the mindset that like if the last project I make is my last project, grateful that I was able to be a part of this journey. But always stay ready and stay present, right? So it's just been like feeling, fanning out to other artists, you know, what you guys are doing here. Many other artists doing incredible works that are really helping to navigate and like really understand these times. Yeah, just sitting back and just like watching the world evolve. And if one of these days I have the energy and the know-how to interpret how I'm feeling about things, or if I have something of value to add to the conversation, I will be there. But for now, I think it's just my time to sit back and listen and observe, and be in conversation with people, you know, to understand how we're feeling. So yeah, that's why I think I'm at right now.
Nice, man. Like you mentioned, really lost a lot of people. And I think we lose people and we just carry on sometimes. So just to mention, like Ben Moy or over like someone that we lost in the
Wow,
visual
yeah.
arts as well.
Yeah. Rest in peace to Ben Moyo, man.
Recently, Uvuyo from Cape Town, I'm just forgetting his surname.
Yeah.
He passed. And a whole lot of other people. There's a guy called Siabonga who was a photographer, you know.
Yeah.
So like just honoring those lives as well, you know, because they've contributed to the space. Because things happen
Yes.
so fast that we forget as well.
Absolutely.
So while you were speaking, you just like made me reflect on those like individuals as well.
Absolutely.
Tsoku, I'm on my last question. But before I ask it, I just want to say thank you for your spirit, man, and like your time as well. And keep doing what you're doing, keep thinking, keep reflecting, because when you do put out stuff, a lot of us have a bit of resonance with what you're sharing with the world.
I appreciate it.
The one thing that I've noted about you over the years is that you're big on collaboration. And even when you talk about your projects, it's never I, it's we. Can you perhaps speak about that and maybe touch on the work that you've done with Eli? Eli goes by a different name nowadays. I'm just forgetting the name.
Nyambo, yeah.
How did that come about, and why is collaboration so important in your world?
Yeah, so I don't collaborate as much as I'd like to. I think in spirit I'd like to collaborate more, but it's like always about timing, always about alignment and not forcing things. We're not out here cloud chasing, you know. I'm not saying people are, but we're not forcing things, right? We want to make sure that like when we come into the space of creating, whether it's thinking, feeling, or making something, that we are in a season that feels in alignment with ourselves and with each other in this space. And believe it or not, Eli Minyambo Masamara, Go check him out. That's my brother, and it's like we knew each other for we did a project in 2020 together, and we knew each other since like 2014. So we spoke about collaborating with each other in 2014 when we met, and it took about 6 years for us to get to a place where we could make something. And the reason we got to that place was that like the conversation that I had in mind in terms of the project also resonated with him in what he was doing at the time, because he's very big on slow fashion as a designer himself, an incredible designer, and also like our spiritual beliefs and understandings have always aligned with each other. And I wanted to make a body of work. It's called Chakua, which is also literally a word in Rwanda for choose. And it's like, actually, let me get into it properly before I jump around. And so we wanted to make this body of work that reflected on mind-body connections with the environment, right? And so we wanted to play with this very deep, high metaphor of like, cool, how do we comment on the state of fast fashion and how Europe tends to overproduce in materials, and when they have no use for it, they dump it back in Africa, and then we Africans have to ration it amongst ourselves. So these are the these are the thrift markets in Rwanda and other parts of Africa as well. So they call these things chakoa because it literally gets there and you have to choose all these things. And the idea of Africa not being the dumping ground for the West, and how we can repurpose all the materials to clean our ground and allow the flowers to grow and make a mind-body connection to your mind as well. How do we also clean ourselves in terms of cleaning our environment? We don't expect anybody to get that high concept the way it is. It was just fun for us to think about. And so we really, we came together, we created a lot of the materials that we used in the body of work through recycling, actually. So the props that you're seeing in the photos, we recycled. And we made new stuff, and we're able to resell those into something else. So that's how I come into collaborations. Really, it's like how do we align in value, and energy, and direction, and message, and like how can we both contribute to the space in a way that everybody feels heard and considered, and how do we bring other people into the space where they can also showcase their talents and their thoughts and ideas. When we say collaboration, we mean collaboration. Like we leave our ego at the door, we come in. If you think the shot is not making sense for whatever reason, let me know why. And I'll listen to you. And if I think what you're doing there, we can do better, we're collaborating. So usually that's how I try to come into collaboration. I think working with somebody like Eli was a real pleasure and a real honor for me, because that man is on a different planet. With his hands, he can make anything, man. He can make dreams come true. And so Chakua is a very special body of work for us, you know, and it's a body of work that I'm still learning from to this day, in terms of like how it's aging and the conversation around climate. The climate is also building up the way we did. So, yeah, we come into collaboration with a space of trying to share and learn from each other.
Nice, man. I don't know if there's anything else maybe that you wanted to make mention of that I didn't touch on.
I don't know, man. I feel like I've been yapping.
No, but thank you so much for your time again, dude. And like, keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you guys as well. And to anybody that engages with the work, you know, yeah, it's such an honor and a pleasure to share in this space with you.
Cool. Thank you, Tsoku.
Bless.
Cool. It's a wrap. Thanks, man. That was nice.
Wake up in the morning, praying, nigga, bills are paid up. Ooh, it's the morning and I wake up. Wake up in the morning, steady trying to work my way out. The devil wears Prada. The truth is naked like the first man, woman, child. I've been craving forbidden fruit. Low hanging in my altitude with the amplitude of a dying.